Welcome, viewers and listeners, to another episode from Season 6 of Dudes of the Dead podcast. Today, we are reviewing a new release from August, but before we get into that, as always, we will start with our quick cuts. Do you want to start with your quick cut, or should I start with mine?
I shall start with mine.
right.
So, I just want to be clear. I'm going to say a title. Don't react to the title, just listen. So, I'm doing Spiral from 1998.
Oh, not Spiral from the Book of Saw.
Not that one.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay, so this is a J horror, and it's actually a follow-up to The Ring. It happens
cool.
in the
Oh, right,
timeline.
yeah.
It happens next,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I didn't realize. So a young pathologist seeks answers to the mysterious death of a friend and soon comes into contact with the same cursed videotape that caused the death of the friend's wife and son, which is haunted by the curse of Sadako, a relentless spirit. So this film picks up where the husband at the end of the first film ends up being a friend of this pathologist.
Okay.
And so that brings the pathologist into the Ring timeline.
Yeah, okay.
It's not as good as The Ring,
No.
but it was not bad. It's directed by George.
I love The Ring. It's really good.
Yeah, me too. And I love that feel.
Yeah.
So it
So I'm
was
trying to remember,
pretty
did they
good.
do an American remake of
Yes.
Spiral as well?
Oh, that I don't know.
Because it rings a bell, and I can't remember if I watched the J-horror version or whether they actually did an American remake of Spiral as well.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'll have to go look at that.
I don't
afterwards.
know. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway,
Um,
sorry.
Sorry, there's no franchise or game or anything attached to that. Just before Mike gets to his franchise or whatever he's doing, I want to give a shout out to T Public, TEE Public. .com, which is, I'm sure some of you are aware, they have a lot of cool shirts, and I just spent way too much money ordering 6 new shirts for the podcast. This one's pretty cool because it's VHSs from the 1980s.
That is awesome.
So it's I quite like this one. But anyway,
I'm starting to feel this like slight sense of competition with you now for shirts.
Yeah.
The arms race. Like I bought a few, and then you saw them. Then now you went and bought some, and now I feel like I need to go buy some more. But
it totally started with the Nicolas Cage shirt, and I didn't want to copy you, so I didn't want to buy the same one, but I wanted to have a Nicolas Cage shirt as well because he's just hours of entertainment.
I was so proud of a Nicolas Cage shirt, and now I feel like yours is maybe a little bit cooler. But the audience hasn't seen your shirt yet.
Nope, they haven't.
Right? Or did you wear it for the Long Legs episode?
Oh, maybe, yeah. Maybe.
Oh, no, that's where you saw mine. Anyways, doesn't matter.
That's right. Yeah. We needed more on the back
Yeah,
of
stay
yours.
tuned
Yeah,
for more
yeah.
horror t-shirts.
I'll show you my Nicolas Cage shirt when it comes.
All right, well, my
All
quick
right.
cut pairs very nicely with your t-shirt because I went with a 1980s
Oh.
Chopping Mall.
That's your quick cut.
My quick cut Chopping Mall. Yeah, so this was recommended by our friend Tony, who is a listener, so shout out to Tony. This got a 5.6 on Internet Movie Database, a 55% critic score, which is pretty high, actually.
Yeah, it is.
For a film called Chopping Mall, and 39% audience score. The premise is a group of young shopping mall employees stay behind for a late night party in one of the stores. When the mall goes on lockdown before they can get out, the robot security system malfunctions and goes on a killing spree. So I've mentioned on the podcast before, I just have like a blind spot from the 1980s.
Yeah.
Because I was born in 1983. I grew up in a fairly restrictive household where I wasn't allowed to watch any horror. And so I started watching horror in kind of the early 2000s. And I went back and watched a lot of classics from like the 70s, but like the 80s, I just haven't seen a lot of the stuff from there.
And there's a lot. I mean,
There
there's
is
a
a
lot
lot.
of cult horror from the 80s for sure.
I feel like we could do a whole season of like cult horror.
100%.
So, anyways, my friend Tony's really into 80s horror, and he gave me a big long list. So I started with Chopping Mall, and it was awesome. Just so fun.
Those are so much fun, those ones. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's such a different style of horror than like the 1970s or like the horror movies we've been watching recently. But there's something about just enjoying the exploitation elements and just having fun with the movie,
Yeah.
turning your brain off and just enjoying the ride. And yeah, it's cheesy and on purpose. It's meant to be
Yes.
fun. It's not meant to be taken
Yeah.
seriously. And it's kind of refreshing and kind of enjoyable. So I maybe looked down on 1980s horror a little bit, which is why I think I didn't go watch it, because I was kind of like,
Yeah. I
these
get
seem
it.
kind of cheesy and lame, but they're actually just really fun. So I enjoyed Chopping Mall. I actually highly recommend Chopping Mall.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun,
Yeah.
actually.
The thing that caught me off guard, just the name Chopping Mall, I assumed it was like an axe murder or something.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, it's like robot security guards. That just I didn't expect that. So that was fun.
I know. It's and those are like, Valentine's Day and Toxic Avenger and From Beyond, and like those are really fun popcorn movies with friends, I think.
And did you watch a lot of those in the 80s?
I did some I've gone back like you, and it's like, oh, I never saw this. Because it depended on what was available, right? You went to the video store on Friday night. I saw a lot, and I can remember like seeing, Maniac or like I remember seeing the VHSs, and I
Yeah, totally.
remember seeing Chopping Mall. But at the time, I still hadn't seen a lot of the really good movies, so we were trying to see better films.
I think that's how I felt as well. When
And
you're
so I
like, oh, I
didn't
need to go back and watch
Yeah.
The Omen, The Exorcist, or
Ex
Chopping Mall.
yeah,
It's just kind
exactly,
of-
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, I've gone back and watched a few of them, and there is an exploitation um, element. I mean, just like there was in the '70s and before, but I think in the '80s there was like I'm thinking of. Have you seen Mother's Day?
I don't think so.
It's kind of gruesome, and it's a cringy. Like some of them, I go back and I watch, and they're pretty cringy. Those aren't the ones like Chopping Mall. They're typically the ones, the hillbilly horror.
Okay, yeah.
And they tend to be quite cringy in hindsight.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they were cringy even at the time, but now it's like, whoa, I can't believe.
You do notice that a little bit.
Yeah,
Sensitivities have changed somewhat in some of the things that they do and say in these 80s movies
Exactly.
would not fly now, but
well, even I watched yesterday, not recommended by our mutual friend Francois, but he mentioned that he'd seen this movie. I'm like, oh, I've never seen that, and it was Faces of Death.
oh yeah, I remember my cousins watched them when I was a kid. I was never allowed to watch them, but I remember seeing
There's a whole bunch of them. Francois had seen the first one.
Now, are they real or they pretended to be real, but they're not actually real?
Okay, so here's the thing. So it's the urban legend is that those are real clips.
Right. But I think I heard they're not.
I don't buy it.
Okay.
I mean, if you, as a critical viewer, like I'm watching this going, so for example, there's one where there's a ranger, and people call in that there's an alligator. So this ranger comes in a boat with another guy, and he throws a rope out into the water, and then he gets pulled into the water, and all you see is like roiling water, and the camera's all over the place. You can't
Right.
even see. And then when they pull him out, he's all bloody.
Right.
Like I'm going to call BS on any of that being real.
Yeah. As a kid, I always thought they were real because that's
Yeah.
what people said. It's kind of like pro wrestling, I guess.
Well, and like snuff films, right? It's
Yeah.
like I don't buy it. And okay, so here's my challenge to people who think it's real. If it's just a bunch of clips, real clips that have been stitched together, why does it need a director? Which
Good point.
is named at the front of the film, right? Why does it need a DP and executive producers
Yeah,
and
yeah.
whatever? Like if it's a found footage film for real,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have any of those people. So I'm going to call, sorry, Francois, but I'm going to call BS on that.
Yeah, Francois. Okay,
But
good point.
I think if you saw it at a certain time, like we've talked about this before, I would, if I'd seen that when I was 13, I'd probably have memories of it going, yeah, that was.
Yeah, totally.
real.
Especially just
Yeah.
going in with that idea that it's true. Anyways, if you don't know who Francois was, he came on season
Was it
4,
four, I think,
3
yeah.
to talk about the menu. He's a chef. So if you've not listened to that episode, you can go back and look for the menu.
Yep.
All right. So getting into our feature film for today is Trap, directed by none other than M. Night Shyamalan. This is starring Josh Hartnett as Cooper. What was that sigh for?
Sorry.
Ariel Donahue as Riley and Salika Shyamalan as Lady Raven.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
What's with all the police everywhere? I'm not supposed to tell. I can't stop. I'll just do this one last one.
Enjoy the rest of the concert.
So the premise is a father and his teen daughter attempt a pop concert only to realize that they've entered the center of a dark and sinister event.
Now, if-
Now I'll just say, so 6.2, Internet Movie Database
Yep.
score, 55% critic score, and a 65% audience score.
Yeah, that shocked me.
I couldn't believe it when I looked at these. I was waiting for like the 5 and 10% spoilers for how we felt about this film. I thought it was really bad, but I'll let you start.
Well, no, I was gonna say, just because you read that little excerpt, if only the trailer could have shown as much restraint as that excerpt, it probably would have come off as a better film.
Yeah, can we start with the trailer?
Yes,
Because
please.
I was so frustrated when I watched that trailer.
It gave everything.
Everything. And apparently I'd read that M. Night Shyamalan actually signed off on it. So he approved that
Wow.
trailer. But I feel like it would have been a very different experience, kind of like Annabelle. If I had gone in not knowing the premise, I think I would have appreciated it more.
Yeah.
Despite a lot of train wreck elements in this movie, which we can talk about. But I'm just sick of trailers giving away the story.
yeah.
You don't need to do it.
It's so frustrating, because did you and I see it when we were at a theater?
Yes.
So
And I was instantly frustrated.
instantly, I knew, okay, they've given away everything.
And so if you've not seen it, I guess slight spoilers for the trailer for Trap, which I'm just curious to talk about.
Yeah.
So had they just said the premise that there's a concert and that the
Yes.
police are there to catch a serial killer, you could have left it there.
Yep.
But they go one step forward to actually reveal who the serial killer
Yes.
is, which I
Yeah.
feel like would have been really interesting had they had some suspense around that.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, there was absolutely, like I said, if they had just done what the trailer did and said, oh, like there's a dark event happening at this concert, and left it at that, left us with something to discover when
Yeah.
we go to the film. But instead, you know right from the trailer, okay, who's the person. I can't believe that he signed off on it. Like, I could see the studio like pulling a fast one,
For sure.
but I can't believe that the director would sign off on something that reveals so much important detail from his film.
For sure. So I think for the purposes of this recording, I think we're going to have to spoil at least that part of it at the beginning. It's almost impossible to talk about this film without saying that. And it's in the trailer. Do you think? Like, I think if you want to know nothing and you don't know the premise of Trap, you should go watch it before listening
Yeah,
to this.
yeah. I was gonna say, stop listening and don't watch a trailer if you've managed to not see one. Then
Yeah.
don't watch one.
So we'll still do our non-spoiler and spoilers.
Yep.
But in terms of who the killer is that they're trying to trap, that we will spoil up front.
I don't see any other
I
way
think
to
we
do
have
it.
to.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Because I think they robbed the audience of a really cool moment of figuring that out and coming to that realization, because it seems it's not what you would expect.
No, and yeah, I think it would have been so much better a film if you had allowed the audience, because it would have become apparent fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And that's fine when you're in the movie.
Yeah. But they could have dropped some breadcrumbs and you start thinking,
Yeah,
oh, really?
yeah,
And then you'd be like,
totally.
oh, wow, I can't believe that's
Yeah.
the premise. But when you know in the trailer, you're just like, okay, well, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And this trend is still really bad. And some trailers are not doing that. Like, I really applauded the Long Legs
Yes.
trailer for getting you interested, but they didn't give it away.
Yeah.
And I have just stopped watching trailers basically, but this one was really frustrating.
And I would argue, like, if you're Saw 11's coming out this year. So if you've got a franchise and you're, 6 movies deep, people kind of know what to expect.
Yeah.
If it's a Freddy, a Jason, whatever. And that's fine. Spoil it you're not spoiling anything because we know what we're going to get.
Yeah.
But when you've got a brand new premise that's not part of a franchise that you're trying to create, ideally, I think you would have had a bit of a whodunit in this movie.
Yeah, I think it's just a cool moment they could have given to
Yeah.
the audience that they robbed them of
Yeah,
because
agreed.
of the trailer. Yeah. That being said, I don't think that would have saved the film.
No, there are far.
There's
far
still a
more-
lot of problems with this movie,
Yes,
even if
yeah.
you didn't know what was happening going in.
Yeah.
But I feel like this film is almost a complete mess. The metaphor I use is it's kind of like building a sandcastle, but your foundation collapses right at the beginning, yet you keep piling on more sand and trying
Yeah,
to build
that's
a
a good
castle on
analogy.
top of something that has no foundation. The amount of suspension of disbelief
Yes.
across the board in all these different ways is just too much. for
I have
me.
exactly that note to myself. Is like, it was asking too much of me. as
Way
a
too
viewer.
much. And I'm someone who actually is okay with suspending
Yeah.
disbelief a little bit. Like I don't nitpick all these little details. And I'm a Shyamalan fan, and I want to usually give him the
Yeah.
benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, yeah.
But even with those two factors, on so many levels, I just like, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't buy any of this. From the dialogue to the motivations of the characters, to
Yeah.
the decisions of the characters, to even the premise of the film at
Agreed.
the beginning.
Yeah.
The entire thing is really stretching.
Yeah. And it reaches far beyond its grasp. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, so can we start with performances then?
Yep.
Because I thought, like, I like Josh Hartnett, so I have
Me
a
too.
soft spot, and I thought he did, although it was a bit heavy-handed, I thought he did like the transition from, great dad to creepy stalker guy.
So the spoiler is that the dad is the killer.
Yeah.
Despite him being like this seemingly amazing dad
Yeah.
taking his daughter to a Taylor Swift style concert with Lady Raven.
So I think he was good. I believed some of the darkness behind, like, for his character. I thought the daughter was good. I thought the wife was pretty solid, although she has smaller parts in the beginning. They get better. Like, has more to do towards the end of the film. My real issue is with his daughter.
For acting?
Suleika.
Yeah.
Not just for acting, but for the whole plot line. So you talked about suspension of disbelief. So first of all, we spend the whole first act at this concert.
So just to be clear, so Suleika Shyamalan is M. Night Shyamalan's real daughter.
Yes.
And she actually is a musician.
Yes.
And he has essentially made like a Eras
yeah,
tour
A
style
movie video. Yeah.
concert where
Uh,
she basically does entire
yeah.
numbers.
Yeah.
So she is a really key role in the film, both as a performer and unfortunately as an actor as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I found it's not to say necessarily that her acting was terrible. I thought the amount of screen time that she got for basically an unknown.
Mm.
And some of the things that she does, and I don't know if we want to save some of that for spoilers, but talking about suspension of disbelief, I mean, just some of the things that she does as a celebrity within the film, completely unbelievable to me. There's no way
For sure.
if somebody's going to do an arena tour, they're going to have security.
Yeah.
And the security is not going to let her do the things that she did in the film.
You could spend an hour, a literal hour, I think, talking about all the
100%.
unrealistic things
Yeah.
that happen.
Yeah.
I guess I'm questioning. So you're saying you didn't think she deserves screen time because she doesn't have history as an actor?
No, I'm not suggesting that. But what I'm suggesting is for a relative unknown to have basically the whole first act of the film focus on her.
Mhm.
I don't think that's appropriate for somebody who has no chops, who hasn't paid their
Sure.
dues,
Okay.
right?
See, because she's a musician, I actually thought her role worked as the
Sure.
performer, but you could see she didn't have the same acting chops.
Yeah.
So when she's given a pretty pivotal role in the second half of the film, that's where it started to show its weaknesses, I thought.
And I guess the other thing is, sure, throw in some, vignettes of the concert or whatever. But I found that whole first act dragged for me because it's just kept going back from dad to concert. And for me, that didn't build the tension, and it
Yeah.
just aggravated me that I had to see another number that I wouldn't listen to if I was,
Yeah, so the cynical side of me wonders, it almost feels like instead of being like, I have a really cool idea for a film and I'm going to make that film, it seemed like I want to make a film that features my daughter as a
Yeah.
musician, and I'm going to try and build a film around that concept.
Yeah.
Almost like the Eras Tour thing with Taylor
Yeah.
Swift. I think he was like, I want to start with this and then try and build a film around it. But the film part around the concert just really falls apart.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced that he had a really good idea for a story in his mind. I feel like he was almost like, I'm going to showcase my daughter as a musician and try and build a story around that concept. And it didn't work.
Well, this is one of the other things that I noted, because we talked about this with Knock at the Cabin. I noticed that in interviews they call him Knight, so I guess that's just what you're. So
Yeah, I guess so.
So if Knight has someone writing with him, it balances out his tendencies.
Yeah.
He's the sole credit for writing on this, and you see it. He doesn't. He needs a tempering force when he's writing, so that yes, his ideas get in the mix, but then he focuses on the directing. I think.
Yeah,
that-
you said that before.
I agree with you that I think his whole premise here was an excuse to highlight his daughter's musical talents, and then you kind of jam a film in around it. Oh, here's what could happen.
Like there's sometimes where his awkward writing and dialogue kind of works. Like in Signs,
Yes.
I feel like it's kind of weird dialogue, but it's kind of endearing and charming and funny.
Yeah, and it works.
And here it felt just uncomfortable and awkward and inauthentic, and it didn't work. And I
Yeah.
wonder if that's because that one's kind of sort of was a comedy, and this one was meant to be more of like a tense thriller, but the dialogue really undercut
Yeah.
that feeling. I don't know. Tonally, this one was really weird.
Yeah.
I agree with you with performances. Josh Hartnett, I think, is great, although he had so many bad lines.
Yeah.
That wasn't his fault. That
No.
it's kind of hard to differentiate between his performance and what he was
Yes.
given to work with. But I think he did a good job, and I'm a
I
big
feel he
fan.
did,
Like in The
yeah.
Faculty, I love Josh Hartnett, and I think the daughter did it. His daughter in the movie, Ariel Donahue, was good.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought she was good too.
And I think his daughter, Salika, as a musician was good. I bought her as kind of like
Oh,
a pop
yeah. Yep.
star. And I think her performances were very evocative of like a pop star. But holy, this movie really, in my mind, falls apart.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, for me, it was the amount of time that you focus on that. And
Yeah.
then how she becomes an integral part of the story. I didn't buy that at all.
Yeah. So I think when we get to spoilers, we can talk about more specifics.
For sure. Let me just have a quick look at my notes here.
So in terms of likes, I think you've already covered it. It was basically some of the performances.
Yeah. Now-
And
Sorry, go ahead.
no, and just everything else is negative.
Well, do you think it would have helped if this hadn't have had a PG rating? Like if it had been 14A or R, would the options to do some of the things that you can do with a higher rating, do you think that would have saved some of the things in the film?
Not really. I think it might have helped a little bit, but I think there's the problems with this film have to do with other elements, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. And I feel like for me, I thought the first act suffers because there's no surprise.
Because of the trailer.
Because of the trailer.
Yeah.
The second act was like, meh, it was okay. For me, the final act, although there were elements of ridiculousness in that final act, that was the most tense, the most put together, I feel, of the film.
The third act.
Yeah.
I feel like if it were executed properly, it would have, but there were so many problems with it. I was so frustrated and just exasperated with what he was doing that I couldn't enjoy it. So for me, I guess I didn't enjoy any of the acts.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed Josh Hartnett's performance at times.
Okay, so do we want to jump into spoilers?
I think we should jump into spoilers because it's hard to talk about a lot of these things without giving
I
stuff
agree.
away. Do you recommend Trap to our audience?
I don't. I think if you're not an M. Night Shyamalan fan, there's not a lot here for you. If you are a fan, there are better M. Night Shyamalan movies by far. I just don't, there's not enough that I would say if you haven't seen it, you should go out and see it. Like unless you're doing a Shyamalan retrospective, I'd say avoid this one.
I don't know if you agree. So I'm going to say I think this is the worst M. Night Shyamalan film. Even Old, which was getting really bad reviews, which I went into with low expectations. I would think I enjoyed it more and it was more cohesive than this one. And I say that as a fan of M. Night Shyamalan, but I think this one's a complete avoid. I think this one is a failure, and I think the concept.
How do you really feel about this film, I wonder?
I feel like the problem was just with the concept, and I don't want to be cynical, but I feel like he wanted to just make a movie to highlight his daughter's.
That's how I felt.
Which, if he pulled it off, would be fair enough. Like, that's cool if you want to help her out.
Yeah.
I think, like, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I have a problem with if that's your premise, and then the whole movie suffers as a result
Yeah,
because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I feel like this one really doesn't work. So, unfortunately, in my mind, this is the worst M. Night Shyamalan film that I've seen.
And that's saying
And I say that with sadness because I was looking forward to this until I saw.
Yeah,
the
me
trailer.
too. Me too. Because I mean, Hartnett hasn't done a lot in the last few years. I think he's taken a bit.
Yeah,
of
I'm
a
happy to
break.
see him back.
So yeah, and of course he's not just things like The Faculty, but Penny Dreadful and different things. He's done a vampire one. Is it 30 Days of Night? Is
Oh,
that
30 Days
Hartnett?
of Night's
Yeah,
awesome
that's a
too.
really
Yeah,
good
yeah.
one.
Penny Dreadful.
So
Totally.
he's done some really good work, and I agree with what you said earlier that I don't attribute the weakness to him.
No,
You can
no.
only deliver bad lines so well.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I agree. I think he is good. It's just too bad that he wasn't given more.
Agreed. So spoilers.
Spoilers.
Okay.
So I just had an upcoming thing spoiled for me.
What have you got? I got quite a bit for spoilers.
Yeah, no, me too. I mean, the amount of suspension of disbelief. So just the idea that the whole they would set up.
Yeah.
Just the concept that there's a serial killer at a concert and they're gonna like use that as a way to trap him with all the public around. Like
Yeah.
to me already, that's like, I don't buy it.
Yeah, 100%. They would not risk thousands of people
Yes.
to catch one guy.
Right. So even with that, I would be willing to forgive that if the rest of the movie was
Okay,
good.
fair.
But on top of that,
Yes.
then you have all of the dialogue is awkward, inauthentic, doesn't make sense. Like the conversations he's having with like his friend's mom,
Yeah, it's pretty stilted.
those are all weird and they don't really make any sense. The motivations of the characters. So the t-shirt scene, the t-shirt
Yeah.
vendor, when he's like, "Oh, that was so nice of you to like let the other girl have the small t-shirt. Let me take you into the back
Yeah.
room
Yeah.
and I'll make extra time for you."
When
and
I've got
I'll-
all these long lines of people who want to buy merch, I'm just going to leave my station.
in an environment where they've been told,
Yes.
like, there's a serial killer here who fits the profile of him. And oh, what's the secret password? Oh, I'll tell you because I'm your
Totally.
friend.
Totally.
And then when he's talking to the cops, he's like, "Oh, so," and they're talking about the profiler.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the deal with her? And he just tells them
Yeah.
like all the
Yeah, yeah,
details.
yeah.
So it's just like, are you kidding me? Like, I just don't buy that these characters would interact this way and divulge this type of information to each other.
Yeah, agreed. And
Well, there's a lot more.
you've got, it would seem, all of the local PD, plus it looks like half the FBI surrounding and infiltrating this place, and he still gets away.
Yeah.
Like, how?
And he fits the profile.
Yeah.
Right? If
I
he
mean,
was
how-
an 80-year-old woman or something, I could see her
Yes.
getting away with something
Yeah.
like that, but he's kind of who you're looking for.
Yeah, it was so frustrating to see just how lame the story and the dialogue was, and it was almost like, yeah, it was insulting as an audience member that you would be expected to just take this on. It's like, yeah, well, just accept what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Should I keep going? I have more.
oh yeah, keep going, keep going.
So the scene in the house when the police come in,
Yes.
he's not trying to like gouge one of their eyeballs
Yeah.
out, right? And they don't shoot him and
Yeah.
kill him on the spot.
Sorry.
How many videos are there on YouTube of people like trying to like
Yeah,
surrender
unarmed
to the police
people,
unarmed
yeah.
and they get shot to death? And this guy's like eye gouging a
Yeah.
police officer. And then they send in the elderly lady with the taser to take him down. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then this guy who's just tried to eye gouge a police officer who's like a known serial killer who you've been hunting all day with hundreds of police officers, walking to the car, you're gonna let him stop and like have a mental moment of sentimentality with the kid's bike. And
Yeah.
I like
That
it
was
just, are
just-
you kidding me? Like there's just no way. Like the guy would be dead. They'd shoot him on the spot, or they'd be like roughing him up and
Yeah,
throwing him in the
totally.
back of the cop car.
Totally.
Like this is the most like inept
Yeah.
police force. Like in any one of those things, I might be able to forgive. But like in totality,
Yes.
when
It-
all of your dialogue makes no sense, none of the character motivations make sense, all the situations don't make sense, the premise doesn't make sense. It's a mess.
what are you saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
it's
mean, I
frustrating.
just feel like I was so frustrated at the end of the film because, again, like many franchises, instead of just licking your wounds and calling it quits and just saying, okay, phew, that was a bad one, let's get that off the, he gets out of his handcuffs and does this stupid evil grin laugh thing, and it's like, oh come on, you're setting me up for a sequel. This wasn't even good enough to have one film, let alone more than one.
Okay, even more. The Houdini,
Ugh.
like he is just materializing in all different spots.
Yeah.
He's in the limousine, the cops are there, the car's surrounded by
Totally.
a crowd of people who are looking for him, and then he's just
Yep.
seen around the corner walking down the street. It's like, that's not even possible.
It is amazing how much a ball cap will hide your identity, though.
Oh man. And like Raven, so you're telling me like a Taylor Swift style celebrity is just gonna like get into a car and be like, oh yeah, I want to come to your
Yeah.
house, and just how they go about getting the backstage passes too.
Yeah, totally.
Like, couldn't you just say they won a backstage pass as part of
Yeah.
like a raffle or something? Like, no. Oh yeah, my daughter has leukemia. Oh, okay, well here we'll give you the backstage.
Yeah.
Just every moment of this movie is just asking you to suspend disbelief in a ridiculous way.
Yeah, it was painful.
And the worst offender was the pie scene with the wife. Was it pie or cake?
Yeah, I think pie. Yeah, I think you're
Like,
right.
we've revealed that this guy's a serial killer
Yeah.
who you've been married to, who's been like hiding from you, and you've revealed him. Oh, well, let's just celebrate anyways and have a piece of pie together. And they just sit down at the table and eat. Like, it just
Yeah.
give me a break.
And the fact that he's already second guessed. So she's suspected him for some time.
Yeah.
So she's obviously second guessed. He thinks that now that she knows he's a serial killer and she's the one who called it in, he's just going to eat something that she presents to him.
yeah, and she's not eating any of it.
Yeah.
And he's apparently really smart.
It just, yeah, that didn't wash at all.
Yeah.
It's like you would be suspicious, I think, of somebody who has said, oh yeah, I've suspected you for a while. And then Shyamalan has done this with, like, if you look at Split and Glass, he's got this thing, and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm missing the connective thread here, but he's got this thing with sort of seeming mortals who have extraordinary strength or intelligence or
I mean, that's fair, right? I think like that's sort of his superhero universe, isn't it? Kind of like Split and Glass.
yeah, fair.
And actually,
fair.
a question I had is, so you have Split, you have Glass, and this is Trap.
Yeah.
And it's with a guy who is a villain.
Yeah.
Who seemingly maybe like the only explanation is this guy does have some kind of superpowers of like illusion or
Something.
so I'm wondering if this is actually part of that universe.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing I was just thinking is I really liked Split. That was really well done.
Yeah. Because what's the Bruce Willis one? His first Unbreakable.
Unbreakable.
Because he's like a superhero, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got Samuel L. Jackson's character. So I think they're meant to have superpowers.
I do think so, but
Yeah.
what I'm in those ones, yes. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, in this one, does he really? I found not Ewan McGregor, Split.
James McAvoy.
Yeah, James McAvoy. When I saw that in theaters, I had absolutely no problem believing his Split because he was so
amazing.
convincing.
Totally.
I just don't buy any of this.
No, I don't know either. And this doesn't forgive anything. I just wonder if this is actually meant to be another villain in that
Maybe, yeah.
universe, given the monosyllable title and the fact that this guy is a villain, seemingly has maybe
I mean,
powers.
we won't have Bruce Willis in, if he does a follow-up film, but
no.
maybe they'll do a look-alike. I don't know.
And even when Raven steals his phone and runs into the bathroom,
Yeah.
he's just like politely knocking on the door for like 10 minutes while she's
Yeah.
yeah, it was bad. Like, I suppose if you were like 10 years old and you'd seen like 8 movies and you watched this, maybe you'd be okay.
Maybe. Even then, I think there's some probably savvy 10-year-olds who wouldn't think this was very good.
But that's where I can't imagine that the plot points were his starting point for this movie. Oh, I have this great idea
Yeah.
for a film. Like, it just didn't seem like all of those things are such a stretch. It seemed like I want to have a movie about a concert that features my daughter's music,
Yes.
and I'm going to
Yeah.
try and make a movie work around that concept. It's the only way I can explain how all these things don't make any sense.
Yeah, because it doesn't hold together as a logical plot. And I mean, okay, if I'm a director and I'm saying, well, maybe I don't want to have another serial killer film where, he's got a double life, which he does, but many serial killer films come at it from that angle, right? We've got a guy with a home life and a family, but he's got this other secret life that's going on. And I could see as a director, you might say, okay, well, I don't really want to, that's been done. I don't want to do that. But this, like all the more power to you. Find something else that's unique and different. But this was ridiculous. Like the idea that it would appear to be an artist kind of on the level of a Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
And 100% it's modeled after the Eras Tour.
Yeah.
The idea that somebody like that would, first of all, be alone with a perfect stranger after the concert in her dressing room with nobody else there.
Oh, it's just ridiculous.
And he would threaten her so that she felt she had to do something. And then...
And there's 100 cops right outside the door.
And the amount of time that she's in his house and her limo driver doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
The fact that her limo driver just concedes when a cop, who's not a cop, it's Josh Hartnett, gets in and says, I'll drive her. It's like, he's not going to do that. He's paid, and that's either his company's car or his car. So he's not just going to let some random cop drive.
And you've seen the house, you know the address.
Yeah.
So go call the cops. Don't go inside the house and do this whole act. Yeah. No, none of this holds up to scrutiny. I don't think, like, no moment of the film.
And like you say, sometimes that's fun, right? Like sometimes if it doesn't hold up to scrutiny, you can still kind of go, oh yeah, okay, I can see how they got. But this is just one thing after another. It just compounds throughout the film. And you're just like, the amount of stuff that you're asking me to ignore is...
Like if you have a solid foundation, you've built a really good, to go back to my sandcastle analogy, and then you have, maybe have to suspend some disbelief at the end, but the payoff's really good. Like that works.
Yeah, totally.
Or a couple of these little things you can nitpick, but just like the entire film, you're basically asked to suspend disbelief. And I can do it. And that's as someone who enjoys his movies and goes in rooting. Like I went in rooting for M. Night Shyamalan. I know some people like hate him.
Right.
And I think they kind of want to crap on his movies.
Yeah.
But I don't put myself in that camp. I like a lot of his films.
No, I mean, I want to like his films, and I have liked many of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really liked Knock at the Cabin. I also really liked, like, one that's often vilified is it Woman in the Water or
Lady in the Water?
Yeah, Lady in the Lake or whatever it is. I mean, I didn't find that as terrible as some people thought. I could see the faults, but I kind of liked. So yeah, it's frustrating when it just seems like he's got a real blind spot for it. You would think that someone who's done as many films and big budget, high profile films would, and maybe it's ego, but you would think he would be able to say, yeah, my stories aren't that solid. Like I'm a good director, like some accountability and some way where you go, okay, yeah, that's a flaw for me. I think I should have somebody come in and help me.
But he finances his own films. Is that correct?
I think so.
Like, I think that's what I've heard. So maybe he doesn't, there's no one to keep him in check.
No, that's
like
quite
he
possible.
He can write himself a blank check to do what he wants. Whereas if you're beholden to a company or a studio, then maybe they can be like, this probably doesn't work. You should maybe go back and look at this. Whereas he can get away with it.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, there's some loophole in what he's doing because there's no check and balance for, like, obviously no one has read the script and gone. And having said that, I'm having a bit of a hard time. Like, it's like, oh, Josh, why did you agree to do this film? Because the script had to be terrible. Like, I can't imagine it was a good script, but a bad execution.
I mean, there's so many high profile actors who have worked for him and done his movies, like everybody really.
Yeah.
So they must like working with him, or he's done enough good stuff that I guess.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't know until it comes out. I mean, to be fair, I mean, we are dumping on this film really hard.
Yes.
It has a 65% audience score.
I know.
And a 55% critic score and 6.2 in movie database. So that's
pretty respectable.
Especially considering a lot of the films we looked at have been like 3%, 5%, 12%, like 65% means like a majority of people enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you and I, as fans of him and coming in rooting for him still.
Yeah, I still can't see it.
No. So anyways, it's a strong avoid. Is there anything else, spoilers, that we've missed?
I don't think so. I mean, I think I dumped on everything I wanted to dump on. I guess we've already mentioned these two things, but
Oh, I know what I want to say. Sorry, you go ahead.
I found it quite predictable.
That as well.
Yeah, like, I mean, I saw from a mile away that his wife was going to poison him. I knew 100% that was the FBI profiler at the end,
Yes.
not his mother.
Yes.
You know, like, yeah, it's just one thing after another where you're like, wow, this just doesn't hold it for me.
And even the idea, like, I know that there are people who were serial killers who had families and lived a double life. It's the there's a documentary. It's like the Ice Pick Killer or the Iceman Killer. He was like a mafia hitman.
Oh yeah, the Iceman. Yeah,
Iceman.
Yeah.
And he had a family and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. Are those guys also? Do they act like the father of the year and they're like all warm and loving and taking their kids to concerts? Because I had a hard time even buying, because he seems like such an awesome, amazing dad. And then to be like, oh, and I'm also a serial killer torturing this guy in my basement while I'm taking my, like, even that felt unrealistic to me. Like, I would imagine that the people who do live double lives, maybe they don't actually act like father of the year, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are.
I don't know about Father of the Year. I just watched a documentary on the Green River Killer in Washington State, and apparently he was a great dad.
Okay,
like, he took his kid. Now he was a great dad, but he did actually kill one of his victims while his kid was in the car. And they when he was interviewed in prison, they said, you know, like, what would have happened if your son would have seen you? And he said, well, I guess I would have had to kill him too.
All right.
So,
Yeah, fair
I mean,
enough.
he was a good dad, but only to a point, right?
Yeah. I guess the psychopath can play that role. And
yeah, I wondered with some of the scenes with Josh Hartnett where, like, it gets really, and this is what I said, it's a bit on the nose, like, you know, the lighting goes red or what, like, I found it was a bit like, okay, this is the one to hate sort of thing. It was really obvious, but I just found that if he was that unstable, I find it hard to believe that he could keep it together all the time without cracks appearing, without things coming through the cracks. But who knows? I don't know.
The scene too, when she's like calling out to her following on social media, does anyone live near? Was it a lion or a dragon?
Yeah.
And within seconds, oh, it's this house. Like, even that, I was like, no, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Maybe if you had like a week, but I feel like within a minute.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately, I think this one is bad. No matter how many lackluster M. Night Shyamalan films I see, I still
have hope.
Still sucker. Yeah, fooled me once, but I will still be excited for his next movie.
There you go.
But I'm curious to see if he's going to try and tie this in. Do you think they do a sequel with the way it ended?
I think so. Yeah. I think he escapes from, they're going to pull some BS, like, you know, he attacks the driver and the van rolls over and, you know, he escapes out the back or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So maybe he's building up for another like Avengers style, like supervillain mashup.
Yeah, could be. Or I don't remember where we were left with, is it Glass that had all three of them in it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't even remember the outcome of that film, but is it possible that one of those superheroes breaks him out of?
I know. Yeah. It's funny
his
because
custody?
I watched Glass, but
Me
I don't
too.
remember.
I don't remember how it ends.
No. So that's the only thing I could think is like, this feels like it's going to be part of that universe, but we'll see.
There you go. All right. So, unfortunately, don't watch Trout.
Yeah. Strong avoid.
Strong avoid.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching and listening.
And
we'll see you in
see
the
you
aisles.